J'ouvre la séance maintenant.
I'll now call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 41 of the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs.
1082 and the motion adopted on Thursday, March 9, 2023. The committee undertake its study on the subject matter of supplementary estimates, C, 2022-2023, votes 1C and 5C on the Department of Veterans Affairs and vote 1C.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order? Yes. You mentioned that this meeting is pursuant to the motion that was passed by the committee on March the 9th. That motion indicated that this minister should be here for 2 hours. I note in the meeting notice, minister will only be here for 1 hour. Can you explain, or if you can't, could the minister explain why that is the case?
I understand. I heard your point, Mr. Richards, but I have some procedure that I have to read first because we are in camera, we are in public. So let me finish and I will answer your questions. So, de plus.
Further, pursuant to Standing Order 81-4 and the motion adopted on March 9th, 2023, the committee commenced consideration of the main estimates 2023-24, votes 1 and 5 under Department of Veterans Affairs, and vote 1 under Veterans Review and Appeal Board, referred to the committee on February 15th, 2023.
La réunion se...
Today's meeting is in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order adopted on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022. Members can participate in person or via the Zoom application. To ensure that the meeting runs smoothly, I would like to pass on some instructions to witnesses and members. Before you speak, please wait for me to recognize you. If you are participating via video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. Please mute yourselves when you are not speaking. I would remind all members that members and witnesses should go through the chair, and in accordance with our routine motion regarding connection tests, I wish to inform the committee that the witnesses have completed the required connection tests prior to the meeting. So before we go any further,
of our members, Mrs. Lisa Mary Baron, who replaced Ms. Blaney. Thank you for being here with us. And I'd like to welcome our witnesses, Honorable Lawrence Macaulay, Minister of Veterans Affairs, et du Ministère des...
And from the Department of Veterans Affairs, Paul Ledwell, Deputy Minister, Ken McKillop, Associate Deputy Minister by video conference, Amy Meunier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Commemoration and Public Affairs Branch by video conference, Stephen Harris, Assistant Deputy Minister, Service Delivery Branch, Pierre Tessier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic Policy Planning and Performance Branch, here with us, as well as Jonathan Adams, Acting Director General and Acting Chief Financial Officer, Finance. And there we have it. To respond to Mr. Blake's comments, I'd like to say this. Yes, there was a motion, and members, that is the committee secretariat fulfilled its task. The idea was to initially to invite the minister on the estimates and the supplementary estimates. And based on our contacts, the minister is available for 1 hour only. So this is why I agreed to send out the notice of meeting for 1 hour. However, the officials will stay behind with us for the entire meeting, the 2 hours. So it is up to members of the committee to debate the supplementary estimates and the main estimates.
I don't want to belabor it because we only do have an hour with the minister, but was anything done to find out the reasons why the minister was failing to comply with what we were asking of him?
Well, we contact the minister, his office, and he was available for only 1 hour. We will have, during this session, plenty of time, so maybe that the minister will be able to answer your question. So right now,
Mr. Chair, if I just point out in the future, I think it would be respectful to the committee if the minister is choosing to not comply, that that you as chair endeavor to find out why and hold a little bit of account to what the committee is expecting. And I think it's incumbent upon the minister to show some respect for the committee and actually comply with what we're asking. He's here in Ottawa, clearly. Should be able to be here for the 2 hours. I'll leave it at that.
okay, great. So let's start. And Monsieur le Ministre.
Minister, you have 5 minutes for your opening statement. And then committee members will have questions for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members, and thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here and always a pleasure to come to the committee. And I'd like to thank you for your recent work on veterans employment and look forward to receiving your report and recommendations. I'm here today to discuss the main estimates and supplementary estimate C. On the main estimate, you will see funding to extend disability adjudication resources for another year set out in Budget 2020 and 2021. This will help us continue reducing the backlog. I know you all have a keen interest in where we're at in reducing the backlog, so I'm pleased to share with you that the backlog presently sits at 6,800, which is more than a 70% reduction since its peak of more than 23,000 in 2020. And we're on track to meet the service standards by the end of the summer. We also received additional funding to support mental health benefit programs. These programs allow veterans to immediately receive mental health care when they apply for disability benefits for an eligible mental health condition, and to maintain this support until a decision is made on the applications or for up to 2 years from the time the application is received. On the supplementary estimate C, you will see requests that are specific to the department's commemorative activities. Remembering our fallen is the important battles that mark Canadian military history is vitally important. This is why, Mr. Chair, these estimates contain funding requests for commemorative infrastructure in Europe. Last year, we learned that there was commercial development threatening Juno Beach Centre and the surrounding land. We worked closely with Juno Beach Centre Association and the French authorities to jointly purchase the land. And as part of my European trip last month, I was able to congratulate everyone involved. The $4 million on these estimates will help to protect the site from any future development. Last year, we learned that the commercial development, I can assume that every dollar noted in the main estimates and supplementary estimate C make a sufficient difference for veterans and their families in our efforts to honor Canadian military service. The department's annual budget of $2 billion is higher than it was. Is $2 billion higher? $2 billion higher than it was when we formed government. That is money going directly into the pockets of veterans. Mr. Chair, I'd also like to note that I was pleased to provide the committee with the investigative report into inappropriate conversations with veterans about medical assistance in dying. You all had a chance to review the findings, and I hope that, like me, you are relieved to know that these isolated incidents, though terrible, are not indicative of a more systemic issue. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'll be pleased to try to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister. So we're going to start right now the round of questions of 6 minutes each. And I invite the first Vice President of the committee, Mr. Blake Richards.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Minister, first of all, thank you for being here. We wished you were here for the amount of time we'd asked you for, but appreciate that you are here. But I will say this. I've had this role as your shadow minister for about 6 months now. And, I've taken the opportunity to meet and visit with veterans across this country. And the first thing I will say is that many times what they're doing is telling me, we're so glad someone's listening, because they feel like you and your government aren't listening. But secondly, they're pointing out things like the lack of service they're getting for many of the claims that they need to be able to live their lives. I brought up at a meeting recently about the service standard being 16 weeks, and there was laughter throughout the room because they know that is just not anywhere near what's happening right now. There was literally laughter at the idea that was their standard, because they're not feeling like it's being met. You've got a new switchover of a contract that's leaving veterans without services. There's just, I could go on and on. But I think really what it boils down to, we've all heard the saying, veterans use it consistently: deny, delay, die. It's the way they feel like they're being treated. And it all comes to a real head when we talk about this medical assistance and dying fiasco that we've seen in your department. It really, I think, hits home hard for a lot of veterans who feel like they're not getting the consideration they deserve. And then on top of it, the insult that some of their comrades are being suggested that maybe they should consider ending their lives. And it's something that needs to be taken seriously. And I looked through the report. You mentioned it in your opening comments. I looked through that report, and it seems as though what was done is that you basically asked employees to self-report if they did something wrong. Maybe did a keyword search of some files. But it also notes that there was as many as 19 other veterans who came forward indicating they had these discussions brought up with them inappropriately as well. But that you found none of those were valid allegations. So are you saying that those veterans were all lying?
Thank you very much, Mr. Richards. And if you have met these people, all I would ask you is why you didn't bring it forward. You know that I asked for an investigation led by the Deputy Minister. If you don't trust the Deputy Minister, you could go to the ombudsperson. If you don't trust the ombudsperson, you could go to the RCMP. If you have information that indicates this took place, why would you not bring information forward when you're asked to do it?
Do you know why veterans are afraid to come forward to your department, to yourself? Because they're afraid of repercussions. Your department's already not providing them the services they need. They feel like it'll be even worse for them if they come forward. I've talked to many veterans. I've encouraged them to come forward, but they tell me they're afraid to come forward because they're afraid your department will give them repercussions for it. That's why they're not coming forward, Minister. And when you have a report that comes out that says that up to 19 more of them have come forward with allegations, and you're telling us, well, you found that there's nothing inappropriate that occurred, what do you think? How do you think that makes veterans feel? Because it really sounds like you're saying that you think they're lying. Is that what you're saying? Why are you not believing these veterans, and why are you not taking their allegations seriously?
Mr. Richards, you were asked by the government, do you not trust public servants? Do you not trust the ombudsperson? Do you not trust the RCMP? If you have 6 or 19 or you're bringing these figures forward, we would ask you, for the sake of veterans that you seem to meet that are so fearful of us, if they're fearful of us, I would like to hope that you bring up that what you did for veterans when you were in government. I hope you brought that up.
Excuse me. You know the rule, and we have interpretation, so we have to wait for your turn. If you ask a question for about 2 minutes, so you have to allow about 2 minutes also for the answer. So, the Minister, you have the floor. Just conclude. We are left 1 minute and 20 seconds left.
Okay. So it sounded to me as though he'd concluded, Chair.
So, excuse me, Mr. Richard.
This is not about
I give
me.
the
This is-
floor. I give
Sure.
the floor to the Minister
I've asked
because
the Minister a
he
question,
did-
and he's refusing to answer it.
Mr.
Chair.
I am very
Blakes,
pleased to
I
answer your
said
question,
the Minister
Mr.
has the floor. Please,
Thank you very
Minister,
much,
go ahead.
Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. And if my honourable colleague is meeting veterans that are fearful of Veterans Affairs, I wish they'd bring that forward. We want to make sure that we serve veterans every way we possibly can, to make sure they receive their benefits, to make sure they receive their benefits at an
Point of order,
appropriate
Chair.
time. Mr. Richards is fully aware that this government has put $2 billion per year into the pockets of veterans, more than when his government was in power. He's also aware
Come on.
that we asked
Point of order. Point
we
of
have asked everybody to bring any
Point of order.
information they have forward
Minister,
to the
just-
RCMP, the ombudsman person.
Please,
the
I got a point
veterans-
of order, so I have to listen. Please,
Chair,
go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I really do not believe that the principle that you have chosen to apply here is actually an accurate one. We have a minister here I've asked a direct question. He's not answering the question. He's going off on all sorts of other things because he's trying to fill the time. You've given him the opportunity. You're
It's not a
providing
point
cover
of
for him
order.
to do
It's
that,
not a
Mr.
point
Chair.
of order because
I
don't
only-
want to have any
I'm allotted
cacophony.
6
No,
minutes, Mr.
no,
Chair,
just a minute.
and I
just
should get the opportunity to ask
no,
questions, not listen to
Mr.
a speech
Richards,
from the minister.
Mr. Richards, please, we have 2 hours of meeting. So I said that you know the rules. There's not supposed to be any cacophony around there. The translation group there, they have problem translate because if we go back and forth, you ask a question, so please wait for the answer. Mrs. Wagenthal.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just would like to challenge you on your interpretation here because I agree that we can't all be talking at once. I struggle with that a bit myself, apologize. But that being said, it is the member who has the floor to ask the questions and determine when they're ready to go to another question. I believe that's the case. So can you just quickly clarify that?
Yes, and in the committee, when someone asks a question, let's say about he has 6 minutes, if he asks a question during 4 minutes, he has to allow the witness to answer the question. You know, I don't say that the witness should take 4 minutes too, but allow him time enough to answer the question. So that's why it was in that situation of answering the questions. And as you know, it's not for me to judge if the
No.
question is related or not.
Or
So-
to determine the time of the member to ask the number of questions
yeah,
that they have
but
to ask.
to allow enough time to the
But
witnesses.
that's a
so
judgment you're
to
making when it's
Yeah.
up to the member to determine when they want to move
Yeah.
on to another question and do it appropriately.
Okay, great. So, Mr. Richards, you have 30 seconds left in your 6 minutes. Please go
So,
ahead.
Let me ask it another way, Minister. What did you do? Did anyone at the department speak to any of these veterans to determine what happened? Any of the veterans that you indicate came to you? Did
Of
anyone
course,
speak to
Mr. Richards, they attempted and did contact veterans, and they always
them?
contact
And they
veterans that
determined
have any.
they determined that they couldn't believe
Are you
the
going to
veterans, or-
determine how I answer? Now, this committee has changed a lot. Normally, you
Mr.
ask the
Minister.
questions and I give the
Sure,
answer.
Mr.
You don't
Minister.
dictate to me how I
Are you-
answer. What I'm
you
telling you
spoke to
is
them, but you chose
that,
not to.
yes, the department did contact
Sorry,
veterans.
sorry.
And if you do
This
not wish for me to answer, that's okay.
Minister, I'm
Well, you're not
sorry,
answering. That's the
everyone.
problem, Minister.
6 minutes,
You're
it's
telling-
over
I'm
now.
telling you that you don't believe in the minister.
Excuse me, you got no mic, right? So, time is over. Now I invite Mr. Miao for 6 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister and official, for joining us today to discuss the supplement estimate C and the main estimate. And it's always great to really talk to you about the important work you're doing for veterans and in the veteran affair. And I want to also acknowledge your visit to Vancouver recently to tour the new Legion Veteran Village in Surrey, the Center of Excellence for Veterans and First Responders, focusing on PTSD and mental health, as well as mixed medical and rehabilitation services. So in your opening remarks, you spoke about the threat facing the Juno Beach Center last year, and many members, including myself, heard from our constituent in large numbers about the concerns surrounding this proposed condominium development on the land next to a center. Can you please tell this committee more about the funding that will help protect the land, but also discuss your recent trip to the center? And I suspect this trip was much different than the one you'd taken last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And of course, the Legion's Veterans Village was a number of, it was certainly an eye-opener to go there. And Captain Green, of course, anybody involved in Veterans Affairs understands what that man went through. And to have explained what took place at the Legion Veterans Village and what they're able to do to rehabilitate this human being that was brutally attacked with an axe in Afghanistan is certainly heartwarming, because that's our job, to make sure that we provide for veterans everything we possibly can to make sure they lead a good life. And I understand Captain Green is up walking and able to talk and improving all the time. And what a privilege to visit that village. They do so much. And thank you. On Juno Beach, of course, as you know, and a number of people at this table were there last year when we found out that there was a condominium development going to take place there, and that would it was a very difficult situation. And it's also important to understand there was a lot of Canadian blood spilt on that land that was going to be sold to a developer. And a number of us went there and met the group, and then I met with the minister of my counterpart in Paris, and we had a great discussion. And of course, you'll see in the supplementary estimates that the $4 million, we worked with the French government, and I want to thank the French government for being involved and so helpful in order to be able to make sure that land was protected. And that was done. And I went to Juno a few weeks ago, and it was certainly a great privilege. One of my stops was to be able to thank the people and for the preserving this property. Also, I was able to announce an investment of $11.7 million to help maintain, modernize, and enhance the visitors' experience at Canada's 15 overseas memorials, including Canada's National Vimy Memorial and the Beaumont Hamel Newfoundland Memorial. It's so important that we invest in these areas, because anybody that has been at Juno or Vimy Ridge certainly understand how important that is for Canadians. I thank you for the question, and it's vitally important to the French government and to the Canadian government, and also very important to the veterans and Canadians in general, because Canadians have a great respect. We heard a lot about the development. Nobody was doing anything illegal, but there was just moves made that was totally unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for sharing that. And also, I noticed there's a funding earmarked for the 2025 Invictus Game in Vancouver and Whistler. The Invictus Game is an incredible experience and opportunity for not just veterans, but CAF members. Could you please speak more about this investment in the game and what it means to veterans, their family, and Canadians?
I have to thank you very much, Wilson, for the question, and I have to thank so many people that worked so hard to make sure that this Invictus Games took place in Vancouver and Whistler. It's an honour to Canadians, and it's certainly no trouble to see it's an honour for people in Vancouver and Whistler, and I did have the privilege to go there. And it's such an honour to see these veterans and showcase what they can do. Like sledge and hockey, when they're out demonstrating that, the great pride that they have for veterans. This is all about rehabilitation. It's not about winning or losing, but it's to make sure that they participate with other countries, allied countries around the world. So it was wonderful, and also to be at the Invictus 2 Years Out event, which was a reception to honor the veterans and to say thank you to people who were, many private sectors invest in veterans programs, which is so important, and the veterans themselves, and the people that are working so hard on this to make it happen. It was certainly enjoyable to see that, to see the pride in people, to see rehabilitation taking place with veterans. It's so important. And I would think in 2 years that Whistler and Vancouver will certainly be hopping. And this is something that many other countries, including Great Britain and France and Australia, will be participating in too. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Second Vice Chair of the committee, Mr. Luc Desilets, you have the floor. 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, Minister and officials as well. Thank you for coming here in person. I'll keep going in the same line as Mr. Miao. Thank you for the investment, $4 million Juno Beach. I was there with you. I really spent made a lot of really efforts for that to happen, and that $4 million is a really testament to the work, and it's a wonderful way to showcase our nonpartisan working together. We're all here together to work for the benefit of veterans. But I do have a question. We have a $1 billion surplus, 900 and some rather million dollars surplus, and we're trying to understand this. How can it be that that amount of money was not spent? Specifically, such an astronomical amount of money not being spent is shocking. If I had $1 billion, I can assure you, I would tend to hire more francophones for decision-making roles, for instance, so that there could be some fairness. I would hire employees to permanent positions. A permanent position is far better, of course, for an employee than a temp position or a contract. So permanent staff, these positions, to say that the permanent position would not be valid in the next year or two, I think the last 10, 15 years has shown that that's not been the case. We need these permanent positions. Again, I was happy to hear you mention a number of things earlier. I'm thinking of 8,000 individuals who are still waiting for benefits. What would I do? I would also hire more case managers to lighten their load. It's not an easy task, and pardon the Anglicism, but their caseload is significant. We have heard over the last year some really high numbers of people who are still waiting within that caseload. So I do have that question. What happened to that $1 billion, almost $1 billion? And do you intend to reinvest that amount into the Veterans Affairs budget for 2022-23?
Thank you very much for your questions. And number one, on Juno Beach, I think it was so important that it was a nonpartisan group that attended, that you very well remember the interview, and that's so important. It really involved the French people when that interview took place, and when the group at Juno Beach put on, you saw it was quite a show. And it was a true human feeling about veterans, which is so important. And that brought us to the point of the French government. As you know, I went on the next day and met my counterpart in Paris, as I said, and really I would have to feel that interview had a lot to do with it. I know my deputy spoke to them in Paris, I spoke to them, but that interview was so important. That being there was so important. Now, look, you mentioned about the lapse funding. Always there's been lapse funding in Veterans Affairs for many, many years, and what we have to do is make sure that the funding is there to provide any veteran when they're approved, their funding is approved, the money has to be there. So there has to be more than is needed, or we will have less than is needed, and that's not acceptable. That's been this year, last year, every year I've been in Veterans Affairs. And of course, you mentioned about positions. Of course, my job is to make sure we have the appropriate people in the appropriate places to make sure that we meet the requirements for veterans as best we possibly can. And you mentioned about this, I think you said the 6,800 veterans that's the backlog at the moment, down from 23,000. And it's so important that we continue on the track to meet the national standard, because I know you care about veterans and you want to make sure that they receive the proper remuneration for what they deserve, and we're working very hard to do that. Thank you.
So I'll carry on then. Is that amount, that surplus, really going to be reallocated to the current year budget? That's 22-23 or 23-24?
Any dollars that goes back to Treasury is just there for the next year to make sure that we have the funding in place, that veterans receive the appropriate remuneration. It is always there. It is not lost at all.
And does that mean that we should also expect a budgetary surplus at the end of the next fiscal year? You're saying that it's on some level normal?
Yes. You would expect it every year. I think you're at this committee every year, but this time I've been in Veterans Affairs before, and always this question comes up. But we always have to make sure that the appropriate amount of funding is there, that we can provide the funding for veterans, and that's why it's there.
It seems that it was less last year, but okay. Thank you, Minister.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, it could be less, but it's always a figure more. It might have been a bit more this year, a bit less last year, but there always has to be a surplus there to make sure that we meet the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to invite Mrs. Lisa Mary Barod for 6 minutes or less. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to the Minister. I'm happy to be here covering for my colleague Rachel Blaney today, MP Rachel Blaney. I have some questions for you that I wanted to ask. So the first one is around the recent rollout of Veteran Affairs Canada recently outsourcing to rehabilitation services to partners in Canadian veterans. Oh, sorry, I'm mixing up the words here. The PCVRS specifically. And I'm hearing that it's been going badly, to say the least, by union advocates, service providers, case managers, and most importantly, by veterans. For example, Veteran Affairs employees say that it costs more than 25% more to be investing in the way to invest with. It costs 25% more to outsource than it does to invest within and the employees within. And I'm wondering if the Minister is listening to these concerns that are being brought forward, and if he will commit to cancelling this problematic contract, and if not, why not?
Thank you very much for your question, and welcome to the committee. And say hello to Rachel. This rehab contract will provide 14,000 veterans with access to approximately 9,000 health professionals in around 600 locations right across the country. My job as Minister of Veterans Affairs is to make sure that we provide the services for veterans when they need it, where they need it. Absolutely no one will fall through the cracks. It will be completely seamless for veterans and reduce administrative burdens on caseworkers. In fact, it'll give caseworkers more time to work on files. Case managers, veterans, and everyone involved has been consulted. Like, we have consulted case managers, we have consulted veterans, we have consulted anybody involved in Veterans Affairs on this rollout. But I think I'd like my deputy to...
Actually, Minister, sorry, if I could interrupt, if I could continue on the questions, and I can ask your deputy questions in the next hour, if I could. Thank you. I'm wondering if you can clarify why the Minister decided not to invest in hiring more permanent workers within Veteran Affairs Canada instead of outsourcing the rehabilitation contract to a company owned by Loblaws.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate your question and concern. And the fact of the matter is, this is a contract. It's some different at the moment, but the fact is, this is a contract that has been going on for a number of years. Different governments had this contract, and why we did what we did now is to make sure we're able to provide these 14,000 veterans with different locations right across the country. In fact, they have 600 locations now approximately. And if we need more, they would be added. But what we want to make sure is that veterans don't have to drive 200 miles in order to have a rehab or to see a psychiatrist or whatever. So what we wanted to do, and why this contract is where it is, because it provides for veterans where they need it, when they need it, and that is simply it.
Thank you, Minister. Have you been meeting with the union, in particular the Union of Veteran Affairs Employees? I'm hearing that that the union has been raising alarms over the transition to the contract and has repeatedly requested a meeting with the minister, but has been unsuccessful within the last 2 years. Can you speak to that and why you're not meeting with the union?
Thank you very much. I've been meeting with veterans and people involved in the union ever since I became Minister of Veterans Affairs. I think it's vitally important to do that. Along with that, meeting with veterans and veterans groups right across the country. If you're going to put programs in place, you have to meet the people who they serve. And that's, of course, what I have done, and that's what I will continue to do. And most people want this contract.
Thank you, Minister. I'm sure you can appreciate the importance as well of the position and importance of the position of the President of the Union. Have you committed to meeting with the President of the Union as well?
Well, as I said, I meet with, continually meet with union people and veterans and anybody. I'm not going to set up a meeting at this moment, but the fact is I meet with, in fact, I meet with people all the time. And in fact, I'm meeting somebody in about 3/4 of an hour or less than half an hour.
But to confirm,
that's what I do. I meet with veterans and veterans organizations and people that help veterans all the time. That's what I want to do, and that's what I will continue to do.
Okay, thank you. But to confirm, you've not met with the union president. Could you answer yes or no to that question?
I'd have to check. I did meet with her, but I can't just tell you when it was. Yes, we have met.
Thank you. The new system for rehab services requires that Veteran Affairs Canada's case manager to confirm the eligibility of the veteran, then refer the veteran to PCVRS. So I'm speaking to things that you already know. But unfortunately, MP Blaney, my colleague, and others have been receiving emails from veterans who are describing the interview process within the rehab service specialists process taking up to 3 hours long. And being told things like their medications should be cut in half, and this is clearly very upsetting for veterans who are reaching out for help. Is the minister concerned about veterans who are not being treated properly within these systems?
I would always be concerned about veterans that's not receiving the appropriate treatment. And I think my honourable colleague is well aware that we've discussed this with case managers, with union people, with veterans. And what we want to do and what we are doing is making sure that nobody falls through the cracks. That's what we have done, and that's what we will continue to do. Thank you.
Beran, so now let's go for the second round for a total of 25 minutes. So I'd like to start with Mrs. Katie Rogenthal for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here. I look forward to meeting with the others that are here in the next hour. So Lifemark and WCG were given this contract for the rehab program, and their requirement was to create a rehabilitation service plan unique to each veteran participating, and it could include a combination of one or more medical, psychosocial, and or vocational rehabilitation interventions involving 6 key function areas: mental and physical functioning, social adjustment, financial security, employment and personal productivity, family relationships, and community participation. So the whole gamut there, Minister. And I just have a question in regard to the way that the program is being implemented. The first year and a half is an implementation period, and I assume that time has passed. And so Lifemark and WCG, I'm just wondering, how much funding have they received already to date from the $560 million? And that's a 30-second question. So I have 3 altogether, and the last one I think you'll want to spend more time on. So do you know the amount?
I do not have the amount before me here, but the deputy would probably have the amount.
Okay, so I will ask him later. That's fine. But you're not aware, Minister?
I'm not aware of the exact amount,
Okay,
no.
okay, fine. Great, thank you. So of the $560 million, then, I would assume then you're not aware of the dynamics between those two companies and how much is being released in what way to each of those organizations?
Of course, there's always oversight on all parts of
So what
government.
is it is what I'm asking
Please,
you, Minister.
what I'm telling you.
Minister, I'm asking.
Ms.
30
Wagenthal,
seconds?
It might do my best,
Okay,
if you let me.
great.
The fact is, in all monies that's spent by Veterans Affairs Canada, there's always oversight on the money that is spent. And in this case, there was an evaluation of what we could do in order to provide the best services for veterans right across Canada. And we felt that if we could provide 14,000 veterans with access to 600 plus professionals right across the country, this
If you're
would make
aware
sure that veterans
of the
are served
breakdown of the
appropriately. What
funding.
we want to do is make sure we provide veterans with the service they want, where they want
Okay,
it. And
thank
that's
you,
what
sir.
we're going to do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So you're not aware, and that's fine, okay. My
Well,
last
I am
question.
aware, fully aware. I am, that's what we're
Okay,
doing.
thank you very much. So the partnership is required to maintain, and this is in their directives as well, to maintain an up-to-date list of registered rehabilitation service providers to whom veterans may be referred. One of the main tasks for this group, partnership, will be to replace the current list and develop and define their own comprehensive network of rehabilitation service providers depending on the business model for service delivery. I'm trying to figure out that business model. So prior to this, case managers ran the medical and psychosocial rehab program, and the contractor managed the vocational. I am aware from an ATIP that the full list of service providers to veterans to date is 250,000 across the nation, and it's being brought down to 9,000. And veterans are actually requesting therapies as part of their rehab plans in this new partnership. They're being told by PCVRS that you can access this through your Blue Cross A-line coverage. They're actually being pushed away from this partnership to their Blue Cross coverage. And in the past, the case managers always coordinated these therapies for the vets, and it was collaborative, having heard from multiple practitioners, and we've heard from a lot of those who've provided those services today about the loss of that rapport and the working alliance between the clinicians, the veterans, and the caseworkers. The new rehab program appears to negate that relationship, and yet they're not providing the service. So my question to you is, why did Veterans Affairs Canada choose to contract out the delivery of the entire rehabilitation program, and why are they already failing to meet the veterans' needs for mental and physical rehab treatments? They're pushing them to go themselves and deal with it with Blue Cross.
Thank you very much. We have and we will meet the requirements. That is why we've continued to keep the professionals that were there when you were in government, when your party was in power. But we've added to it to make it more available to veterans. That's what I'm trying to say, is that the fact is it's available to 14,000 veterans with many, many locations right across the country. As what we want to do with this contract is make sure that we provide the services, whatever profession it is, with the services where they need it. That's what we're doing. That was done partially before, but now we've improved the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to remind all members and witnesses to address their questions and answer through the chair, please. And now for 5 minutes, I invite Mrs. Richie Valdez. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the Minister and the department officials for joining us in committee. Minister, I want to just thank you for providing us updates on the Juno announcements as well as the investments towards the funding for the 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver and Whistler. Such a huge win. Minister, in the first round, I don't know if you had an opportunity to provide an elaborate answer as you were hoping, so I just want to give you an opportunity if you wanted to mention or answer anything from the first round of questionings before I go into my own questions.
That's okay.
Perfect. So, Minister, this committee...
I hope he'll ask them to me again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This committee recently received the final version, as you know, of the report on MAID being inappropriately raised with veterans. And I really want to thank you all for the work that you're doing and all the work that went into that report. And I'm happy to see that this does appear to be an isolated incident to one employee. Over the last 6 months, you and others we've spoken about the impact that this had on the veterans community, but also to veteran affairs. I'm sure these actions have impacted their ability to do their jobs and their reputation as VAC employees. So could you speak about the impacts this issue has had on frontline workers and the important work they do in serving veterans and families?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thank you for the question, and an important question, and this was, of course, an unfortunate situation. It was totally unacceptable, and as you know what we did on the MAID issue, of course, when I was informed, I immediately asked my deputy to conduct an investigation, and then we saw fit to bring in the RCMP, what we wanted to do was make sure that anybody, and perhaps this will help answer some of the questions from the first question. The fact is, for this investigation, what we wanted to do was to make sure that anybody that had a problem in this area, to make sure they contacted the deputy, the department, Ombud, or the RCMP, eventually. What we wanted to make sure was we got to the bottom of this, to make sure that we investigated as thoroughly as we could, to make sure that there was one individual who conducted the conversation with veterans 4 times, which was totally unacceptable. But it caused an awful lot of difficulties, I think, for our great staff at Veterans Affairs Canada. Because I've been around for a while, and I've been in a few departments, and I don't know of a more dedicated staff, the Department of Veterans Affairs. They truly care. They truly care about veterans. And of course, this hurt them. They have a great pride in what they do. If you had my job, you would see. And if you go to the Department of Veterans Affairs, it's good to do that as a committee, just to see exactly what effort they truly do put into it. Not only that, they volunteer their time too. They're really dedicated to the veteran. And this, what happened, really hurt dedicated employees. And I want to say that we have probably the best public servants there is in the government, and I want to publicly thank them so much for what they've done and what they continue to do to make sure that the veterans receive the proper remuneration. It's our job to put it together. It's their job to deliver it. And they're doing that in fine form. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to clarify something you said earlier, which was that if any veteran were to come to you, yourself, department officials, that you would, just to correct the record, you were there to be there for veterans, that you're open to that, and you're always going to be willing to support them. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The report is in, but if anybody has any problem in this area, we want to know it. We're wide open to hearing anything. What we want to do is, as always we do, to provide the appropriate service for veterans. But it's so important that people realize that, and how important it is for the public servants in Veterans Affairs Canada to understand that we're behind them. I certainly am 100%. They're dedicated public servants that do a great job and will continue to do a great job. And of course, they appreciate what we do here, too. So it's, but this was a very, very unfortunate issue that hurt a lot of people. And it's unfortunate, and it was totally unacceptable. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair.
Merci. Et là, nous allons...
Two short 2.5-minute question sessions. Mr. Luc Desilets, you have the floor, 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, when it comes to disability benefits, there's been a large decrease as we're looking over the last 7 years. I'm talking about the discrepancy between French and English clients. We're talking about 8 weeks, that's too much, and Francophones should not be penalized in this way. Raymond Théberge, the Official Languages Commissioner, says this. I was particularly touched by the nature of these complaints because these are services offered to individuals who have served our country and need our support as to the services offered by federal institutions. The time lapse should be the same for Francophones and Anglophones that are waiting for services. Minister, what needs to happen tangibly so that there can be some fairness in the way that these issues are processed for Francophones and Anglophones?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You're absolutely right. And what we have to do is make sure there was a big problem between female and male. Now that's been met. With the French veteran, it was 15 weeks, terrible, unacceptable, totally unacceptable. But it's now at 2.4 weeks longer. That's unacceptable, but we're on the right track, the same track as we're on with the backlog, to make sure that we meet the requirements and that, of course, every veteran, whatever language they speak, deserves the appropriate remuneration because they're the ones that give us the right to sit here and say and do what we wish. Thank you.
Je vous entends.
I hear you clearly, Minister. Now you're speaking like an extraordinary politician, but in actual fact, tangibly, what can be done to make it more fair, the way that the Francophones and Anglophones are, how can they be treated in the same way? Is there anything that's coming?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and I believe that the track that we're on, and you've been at committee with me a number of times, and you saw what happened as we've progressed with the backlog. And as I said, it was at 15 weeks, and now it's at 2.4 weeks. But, Luke, that's not acceptable. It's not good enough. We have to meet the requirement, and we will. I think by this summer, the gap will be closed this year. There'll be no gap.
Thank you.
Vous prévoyez une absence d'écart cet été?
There will be no more gap by this summer?
Merci. Thank you so much. And remind also the minister to address, I know that you know Luke, but please address your answer through me. And now for 2.5 minutes, I'd like to invite Mrs. Barron. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, as you know, my colleague Rachel Blaney has been working hard on the marriage after 60 clause that predominantly impacts single senior women with low incomes. And I'm wondering why the minister is holding on to the $150 million in the Veteran Survivors Fund and why these funds have not been released to the identified spouses.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. We're committed to make sure that veterans and their spouses have the support they need. We have been working with Statistics Canada and the Canada Institute for Military and Veterans Health Research to gather the information about these survivors, and we have that. We will use the results of this information to inform how best to support these survivors. I can assure you, I have to make sure that we support veterans and their families.
Thank you, Minister. This clause, it's clear. We know that this clause is sexist, it discriminates against women, it's archaic, and it needs to be changed. Why are we keeping this gold digger clause in the books? We just need to get rid of it. What's happening with the delay in this?
Thank you very much, and I indicated quite clearly what I am doing as my responsibility for minister, and that's what I have done, and that's what we will continue to do, and we will be dealing with this shortly. You're talking about the $150 million.
Thank you. Just processing another response there. Would you agree that this gold digger clause is sexist and archaic and discriminating against single women, Minister?
What I can do is make sure that as Minister of Veterans Affairs that we make sure that veterans have the appropriate funding that they deserve. That is what I have to do. That's what my mandate is as Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Minister.
And will I do that? Yes, I will.
Thank you. My colleague Rachel Blaney has also been working on the clawbacks to women, serving women who won their class action sexual harassment lawsuit against the RCMP, and she's been up to ask you a question about that as well. It's a shame that we're seeing their pensions being clawed back because they've received settlements, and I'm wondering if the minister could speak to why the government is currently re-traumatizing these brave women, and will the minister stop the clawbacks immediately?
15 seconds, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We appreciate the work Veterans Ombuds Office has done in providing the recommendations to government, and thank her. The women who came forward and disclosed their experience in the Marlowe-Davidson did so with incredible courage. We will contact the veterans.
Thank you.
We have had our disability pensions reduced.
Minister, thank you. Time is up, so I have no choice. So now I'd like to invite for 5 minutes Mr. Fraser Tolmie. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Minister, thank you for joining us today. Mr. Minister, in your response to my colleague, Mr. Richards, earlier on, concerning the medically assistance in dying, you said, don't you trust the government? And you put the onus on Mr. Richards to come forward with veterans who had been offered medically assistance in dying. Mr. Minister, I think I need to point this out to you, sir, that veterans don't trust the government. Veterans have served, and their trust has been broken, and they feel betrayed. So I think that that's something that, even though you're putting the offer out to speak to these vets, they feel that they have lost confidence. And the veterans that I met this past weekend, you stated in the House 2 weeks ago that there is absolutely no one falling between the cracks. Do you believe that?
First of all, what you asked me was, what I intended to say, if I did not say, was that the public service, the Veterans Affairs at Public Service, the Deputy Minister of Veterans Affairs, and the RCMP are involved in this investigation. It was, they had every opportunity. As you know, there's been statements made that different numbers of people have had this problem, but we need them to come forward. If anybody has the information to come forward, we need that information. We did an extensive investigation. I know you respect the RCMP. The fact is, if there's any problem with what has been done, we want to know. And if there's anybody that hasn't been treated right, we want to know. I want to know, the deputy wants to know, and I'm sure the public servants of Veterans Affairs. I stated that we have probably the best I think we have the best public service servants in the country at Veterans Affairs Canada. I've had the privilege to work with them twice in my career, and they're fabulous.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Okay, as I stated earlier on, I had met with veterans this past weekend in Moose Jaw, where they were able to come forward and share some of their stories with regards to accessing help from Veterans Affairs. And when you stated in the House, there is absolutely no one falling between the cracks, what you've stated in the House and what I heard on Saturday morning is completely opposite. Do you stand by your comments?
Well, I indicated quite clearly what this contract was for, what it is to do, and yes, I stand by my comments to make sure that we provide the appropriate service for veterans right across the country when they need it, where they need it. That's what I will have done, and that's what I will continue to do. And that's why we have this contract. And I think you, whatever.
Okay, Mr. Minister, what I have seen and what I have heard from my constituents, from veterans, is completely opposite to what you have just shared with me. Mr. Minister, concerning the almost $1 billion of unspent funds and the reduction of the backlog, many of the people that I have met, their applications have been denied, they've been turned down, they have been denied because of technicalities on their applications and red tape, And the question that comes to my mind is that why we're seeing a reduction in the backlog? Because applications are being denied, which means with the backlog going down, the money and surplus that you have is still not being accessed by veterans.
No, that is not correct at all. The fact of the matter is the amount of people that have applied for veterans assistance in Veterans Affairs has been about, I think, 47% over
40%.
Over 40%. The fact is a lot of people are applying because, as you're fully aware, there have been a lot of enhanced programs since your government was in power. A lot of opportunities for veterans for education, rehab. All these things are so important for veterans, and many people are looking for...
Mr. Minister, while I have you just one more minute here, sir. How many applications have been denied?
I don't handle all the applications.
How many applications have been denied? How many people have been denied or rejected?
Approximately 20%.
15 seconds, please.
How many?
20%.
20% of veterans that they have to prove that they need help are being rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now for the last question, I invite Mr. Shankesi for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Minister, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words about the dedicated staff at Veterans Affairs. I was here during the Harper cuts. I remember distinctly Minister Stephen Blaney coming to the national headquarters in the dark of night unannounced, and everyone was scared to death he was coming to shut her down. And your tribute to the hardworking folks there at Veterans Affairs is very well placed, especially after everything that's transpired in recent months. In his opening salvo, Mr. Richards made several statements without affording you an opportunity to respond to them. I just want to bring you back and give you a chance to do that. He referenced a 16-week service standard and said that when the veterans he talked to heard that, they laughed. Do you know what 16-week standard he's talking about?
Well, of course, and I think I've indicated over my years in Veterans Affairs that was the goal to meet. And as you know, it went from 23, and we're in tune to meet that. We're in line to meet that national standard this summer, to make sure that we provide the fundings for veterans.
So that's the backlog?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. He mentioned that there's a switchover of a contract leaving veterans without services. Do you know what he's talking about there?
Well, I know what he's saying, but...
So this is your chance to respond. He didn't give you a chance to respond. I'm giving it to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Casey. The fact is, what we provided was a contract for 14,000 veterans to be able to access expert professional people in 600-plus areas. And the fact is, there'll be more veterans and more sites for them to go to. The 600 can increase and the veterans can increase. What we want to do with this contract is to make sure that we provide for veterans what they need, where they need it. You know very well yourselves as veterans in certain parts of the country that might have to travel 200 miles. We want to stop that. We want to provide what's right for veterans.
Okay. I want to come back to the staffing complement for a minute. In the departmental plan for 23-24, there's an indication that the staffing numbers at Veterans Affairs Canada has gone up, but is scheduled over the next 2 years to go down by 20%. Why is that?
If I could, Mr. Chair, just to indicate that those are the additional surge resources that are there for the backlog. There's a commitment through to fiscal 23-24 for those who are working on service excellence. There's a commitment through 23-24 or 24-25, excuse me, with respect to case management. Beyond that, there's no further commitment.
Okay.
But it's important to note that's the case at the moment. things change. As you know, we invested $340 million in order to hire people to deal with this backlog, and we are succeeding.
Okay, thank you. Veterans Review and Appeal Board, there's an indication in the estimates that there's a 40% increase in the appropriation for VRAB. Is this the 39 extra people that have been hired? Can you speak a bit to that, please?
Well, of course, when Veterans Review and Appeal Board deal with applications too, and when they have backlog, that's backlog too. So we have to deal with both of those issues, and that's what we're doing.
So is the increase in the workload at Veterans Affairs at the Veterans Review and Appeal Board directly tied to cleaning up the backlog?
Well, yes, of course we have. That will be a backlog if it's not dealt with too. As you know, there's 40-some% increase in applications, which means there's a lot more applications that we deal with on the front end, and then if things have to go to the Veterans Review and Appeal Board, there will be more applications end up there, and to make sure that we deal with that, that's why.
I want to take one more shot at this lapsed funding business. It's my understanding that you never really know on any given year how much you're going to need at Veterans Affairs because everything's demand-based. And the more demand there is, every single viable claim gets paid. The more demand there is, the more money you need to pay it. Is that what's behind the whole idea of lapsed funding, is the inability to always pinpoint what the demand will be?
5 seconds, just so...
Yes.
Yes.
We
Okay.
always have to have the money
you.
to make sure our veterans receive the
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Casey. So I'd like to thank the minister for coming.
Point of order, Mr.
And
Chair?
sorry.
Point of
sorry.
order. Point of order.
Yes.
Yeah, the minister had indicated he was hoping for a few more questions from me. I have some other questions.
Excuse
for him.
me,
And if he'd like
Mr.
to stay 5
Richards.
more minutes, I can
We
certainly
have
give us some answers.
work to do. So, Minister, I thank you so much for your appearance today. And sorry. So I suspend for 2 minutes, and we'll come back with the public servant.
Resume. I'll start by reminding committee members that notwithstanding the fact that we have 4 witnesses here in the room, we also have by video conference the Deputy Minister Ken McKillop and Assistant Deputy Minister Amy Meunier. So we have no opening statements from them, but we'll move straight ahead to questions. I'll ask members to point out who the question is for. Let's start for a first 6-minute round with Mr. Blake Richards. You'll have 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I think what I'll do is start at least with going to sort of back to where we were with my round of questioning with the minister. With regards to the MAID investigation, I'm still left a little unclear as to what was done other than sort of asking employees to self-disclose if they inappropriately brought something up with a veteran, or doing a keyword search of files. And I'm particularly concerned about the point I tried to raise with the minister a few times, which is the idea that, as you indicated, up to 19 additional veterans had come forward with some kind of allegation of inappropriate discussions related to MAID happening with them, but that in all of the other cases, you determined that nothing was able to validate those allegations. And I'm still left very unclear what was done to try to validate those allegations. Did anyone at the department actually speak to each of these veterans to determine what? Because it seems like you've decided that you don't believe them. That's the only assumption one can make when they've brought forward an allegation and you've decided it was not a valid. So did anyone speak to them in detail to find out what their side of the story was, and what was then done to determine that then led to it being determined that their story was not in fact accurate?
Mr. Chair, thanks very much, Honourable Member, for the question and the opportunity to be clear about this. Let me say that from a Veterans Affairs Canada perspective, there was no questioning of the validity of the issues as they're coming forward from the veterans. There was a desire to hear the details and to seek validation for what was being stated and what was being alleged in terms of the counsel that they received. On every case that was brought forward through suggestion or allegation, we sought to get that validation directly from the veteran or from those who might have come forward suggesting that they knew veterans, asking them to encourage that veteran to come forward. And as the minister has indicated, as we indicated the last time here at committee, if they're not comfortable coming forward to the department, we understand that some might feel some trepidation in that regard. If they had a bad experience, to come back to the place where they had that bad experience, to come forward to the Ombudsman and to raise that issue directly with the Ombudsman, and to indicate it. It's very important to get to the bottom of the issue and the specificity of what was raised.
So can I then ask, are you saying that none of these veterans actually, like you heard about them third hand in all cases? Like none of these veterans actually came to Veterans Affairs because otherwise I would assume you would have spoken to them. Is that what you're telling me?
None of these veterans have come forward directly to Veterans Affairs Canada nor to the Ombudsman with any,
and you're saying
with any
that,
information.
That what you would encourage, because I appreciate, and I mean I indicated it myself, that many veterans who I had heard from and who I had heard from others about indicate that they're afraid to come forward to Veterans Affairs, and so I appreciate your suggestion that they come to the Veterans Ombudsman, and certainly I would make that suggestion to anyone who would feel that way, and I hope that some will take you up on that. Can I ask as well though then? Did you look through, because it's one thing to ask someone, did you do something inappropriate? I mean, I would think in most cases, most people are going to be pretty reluctant to disclose that they've done something inappropriate. In fact, of the 4 cases you have, you're aware of, one of them was even sort of almost stumbled upon accidentally by another employee, is what it seems. And so I'm left kind of wondering what was done to try to dig that information up. And one of the things that occurred to me was that, employees through AssistNet can request deletions from files. Did you do a search to determine whether there were any deletion requests for AssistNet about medical assistance in dying?
So, Mr. Chair, if I could, first of all, it wasn't just a keyword search. It was actually an analysis of greater than 400,000 files. All of those files are maintained by our professional staff for a reason, because it's important to keep a record of the interaction with the veterans that they're serving. You can go back and refer to that. You can see what the progress and what kind of issues that are raised. So these are detailed case files that are maintained in the department. We did do
specifically to the AssistNet.
We did do a search on AssistNet to make sure that there weren't deletions, and did not find those deletions.
You didn't find any evidence of any deletions or requests for deletions?
Correct.
Okay. And then you've referred, obviously, the 4 cases that you have become aware of to the RCMP. Can you give us any indication as to what's occurred with that? Have you had any updates? Do you know what the status of the investigation is? It ongoing? Is there anything you can tell us about that?
It's an RCMP investigation, Mr. Chair, and it's really up to them. We don't. They have got no obligation to inform us. They're undertaking the investigation, and we'll leave it to them to indicate what's transpiring.
So you've received no update from them. You have no indication as to whether there's an ongoing investigation or whether they even actually began to undertake one?
To our knowledge, there's been no closure on the file, but we don't know that for certainty. Again, the RCMP is not obligated to report to us. So our understanding is that it's still an ongoing investigation.
Okay. It's over. Thank you, Mr. Richard. So now let's go to Mr. Darrell Sanson for 6 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank my colleagues here today for being with us to share some precise information on key areas. One area I wanted to speak about is the backlog. The Minister in his opening statement spoke about the backlog, and the backlog being 23,000 and now down to 6,800, which is very, very impressive in about a year and a half. But let's talk about where that backlog came from. I think it's important to understand, and maybe you can add to that understanding, but it is my understanding that 2 things happened since 2015. So one is through consultation, government felt that there was many other programs that were required to support our veterans. So more programs were added, which allow veterans to come forward. And the second reason why the backlog, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the second reason was that prior to the government forming government in 2015, in 2014, 2013, there were major cuts made by the Conservative government to veterans. For example, 9 offices were closed right across the country, 9 offices that were serving veterans in their locations. I know one in Nova Scotia and Sydney. And in the second one, there was about 1,000 frontline workers fired. So I can understand that's a challenge, and you got to build it all up again. Can you speak to that, please?
Mr. Chair, if I could, a few things. First of all, as has been underlined, and we'll repeat again, there's been a very significant increase in demand from the veteran community. And I think we have to appreciate that there were many veterans that we had serving our country in Afghanistan, 40,000, greater than 40,000 Canadians who served in uniform there. Many of those now having come forward to Veterans Affairs Canada for support. So we've seen a marked increase in demand. We have seen a marked increase as well on the availability of supports and programs for veterans necessarily in areas like mental health, in areas like identifying supports for women and other underrepresented groups who have served as veterans, to ensure that we are there for them equally. And so there has been a diversity of program offerings as well as a demand on service. And that has built up real pressure on demand. And we're seeing that pressure continue. There was a little dip during COVID, a small dip, but this year, and we're tracking to greater than 70,000 applications for disability supports into Veterans Affairs Canada. So it's a large demand. And we have worked hard with what has been $360 million in additional resources specifically for this backlog over the last 3 budgets.
Thank you,
really
Deputy. Thank you. Could you speak? You mentioned about the mental health program. There's a new program that came out, I think it was last April, which is really, I'm hearing some very positive comments around that because it's immediate. It's immediate. So when you have a mental health issue, you can't wait 6 months to get your application approved. Can you speak to that, please?
Very important. We said, and I think everyone at this committee would underline, Mr. Chair, the importance of getting mental health supports there early for our veterans, to identifying once they have come forward with a desire for the support and for the service to get access to that support and service where they are, where they need it. Since the 1st of April, we've seen greater than 9,000 veterans sign up for that benefit. Greater than 9,000.
How many?
Greater than 9,000 veterans.
9,000 already.
Who have signed up for that
benefit.
You. And greater than 2,500 who have actually taken up benefit directly, which has led to almost 40,000 specific benefits to veterans in less than a year.
Thank you. That's a clear sign of the need to support our veterans. A final question. I see I only have a minute left. The caregiver.
1 minute and a half. Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Like 6 minutes.
Well, then I'll ask 2
1
questions.
1 minute and a half.
I'll ask 2 questions, and you get a chance to go at them. First question is, I see an increase of 23.8% in funding for a caregiver. I'd like you to speak to that, and also the very important program, VIP program, for our senior veterans. So maybe you could speak to both in that minute and a half. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a very important program. We know that it's important to support our veterans where they are, and especially those who are elderly and aging, to ensure that they're able to age in place and provide them with some respect in their own homes, support in their own homes. It's been really important. I'll ask my colleague, Mr. Harris, to speak to that particular supports, because this is an area that he is responsible.
Excuse me, I'll give you 2 brief answers for your questions. With respect to Veterans Independence Program, as Deputy Ledwell indicated, very important to allow for in-home supports for veterans and survivors who need help with something like housekeeping, grounds maintenance, maybe in-home meals or in-home cares, particularly important over the COVID period. So we've seen an increase in usage in the VIP program, which helps keep veterans and their survivors safely in their homes during these periods. In caregiver recognition benefit, we've seen an increase there as well. This is a benefit that allows caregivers to get access to over $1,000 a month tax-free when they are required to help look after their veteran. Could be a spouse, could be a father, could be whatever. And allows them to be compensated for some of the time and energy that they spend caring for a veteran who is unable to care for themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Et maintenant,
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. Mr. Luc Desilets, you have the floor for the next 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Harris, you seem to already have gotten a head start here, so let's continue. The minister announced that there were there was an extension for the case manager's contract. As you know, we all know that these case managers are well appreciated, qualified. We even had a veteran from the Maritimes who appeared before us and said it's just a rare class of people. But in the last few months, we've heard from veterans and representatives that have said to us that there are still individuals who are dealing with 40 cases each. Can you confirm that? Is that still happening? It's possible that a case manager, one individual case manager, may have a caseload, as you said earlier on, 40 cases. On average, it would be about 30. 30 veterans per case manager. Okay, so let's say 30. Then that's not really anywhere close to the ratio that had been announced by the Deputy Minister, former Deputy Minister Latchinsky, I think was his name. How many case managers do you plan to hire? We have the funding for 480 case managers. I think it might be 482 specifically. We are still hiring. There are some that are retiring or moving to other opportunities. We always want to have the full complement of case managers. We are always looking for them. We are currently hiring and training them, and we would like to target in the best possible way that achievement of 480 case managers hired. The beginning of that question was inaudible. Despite the employment context, the answer is yes. Okay, so that's what about a ratio of 25 per caseworker? I think it all depends on the needs of veterans. The number of veterans that come to see us and say they need a case manager, that may vary. Some people leave the case management system and they go to guided support, which is a little lighter, if you will, for individuals who want to improve, their health and well-being, and they can be more independent. But there are other veterans who come to us and need these case manager services. At this point, we're looking at about 14,000 people who do need case managers, and we are always open and listening and looking into who are those veterans who really need a case manager, who could be receiving services that are perhaps lighter through guided support. That's on an on-demand basis. Thank you, sir. Another question. A month ago, you gave us the rehab contract between the department and the rehabilitation partners. Upon reading it, I was surprised to see why the levels of remuneration for public services were blacked out, redacted. It's the type of contract they have per service provider. In some cases, there are fees that are higher than before. In some cases, they may be lesser than they were. These are partnerships that exist between the service provider and our contractor. But I can say this, the people who are already serving a given veteran who move to the new service would continue to work at the rate that they were already working with. But then why redact it? I just don't understand why you would hide that amount. It's not hidden at all. This is something that is between the service provider and the contractor. This is a contract, an agreement that is relevant to them. That's why I would have liked to have seen these amounts, because based on what we're hearing from veterans, we're seeing that the cost for a psychologist in Quebec, or the amount provided, I think it's $150 per hour. In other parts of the country, it's $225. And of course, you're looking at the needs of the veterans in Quebec that are not really met by the services of psychologists. Given that they're not interested in dealing with complex cases, these psychologists. So when I'm looking at this is blacking out of some data, then I'm wondering why. Mr. Chair, these things are negotiated between the provider and the contractor. Often they're following the fees that are set by their association, and these are contracts between these two entities. No further questions. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Desilets.
Now I'd like to invite Mrs. Barron for 6 minutes or less. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to you all being here. I don't think I mentioned it last round. My question is following my colleagues' questions around the Veteran Affairs Canada's investigation into medical assistance in dying being offered to veterans. And this question is to Mr. Ledwell. Can you clarify why veterans that you have on file were not reached out to asking if they had been approached about MAID by a Veteran Affairs worker? Right now, the onus of responsibility is being placed on veterans to come forward, but how can we actually how could a thorough investigation be properly conducted if veterans that are on file are not being reached out to?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, for the question. Thanks, member. The investigation was actually done two ways. So, yes, we invited veterans to come forward, but we also verified through our files any indication where an issue may have been raised inappropriately between a VAC employee and the veterans. Again, looking through and analyzing the case files of greater than 400,000 files to determine whether there was any indication or evidence that such a conversation took place. So the onus wasn't entirely on the veteran to come forward. We were identifying those cases.
So why weren't they reached out to, though? I understand what was done, but do you know the rationale as to why the veterans that were on file were not reached out to proactively to hear from them?
Just to clarify, do you mean the greater than 400,000 veterans?
That's right, yes.
So there was a general invitation for any veteran to come forward. That was made publicly. It was certainly underlined here at committee. It was stated by the minister. It's been stated by me and the department. So there was an open invitation, yes, for any veteran to come forward. And again, as indicated before, if not comfortable coming forward to the department, to come forward to the Ombudsman.
I want to be able to move on to the next question, but how was this open invitation provided?
I think it was very well documented here at committee, contained in the media. We indicated that very, very openly.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwell. Yep. So to clarify, there was no letter sent to veterans. It was them having to be paying attention to what's happening within committee to be able to get the information as to how to get in touch to provide their experience.
That's correct, and I would say in addition to committee, in terms of public discourse, there was a lot of attention on this issue. So it'd be very surprising to know a veteran who might not have seen that. It was so well covered publicly.
Thank you for your answers. I had brought up to the minister before he had to leave around the clawbacks of disability pensions of the women who won the Merlot-Davidson class action lawsuit, and the minister was not able to provide a thorough response due to the timing. And I'm wondering if you can speak to whether these clawbacks will be stopping immediately for these women.
Yes, so as you will know, the Ombudsman wrote directly to the minister to raise concerns about these individuals, veterans of the RCMP. And a response has come back to the Ombudsman from the minister, and there will be communication going out to all those who have been affected to ensure that practice is stopped.
Thank you. We've spoken quite a bit today about the backlogs that are being experienced. I hear from veterans within my riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith frequently, veterans who have been injured while serving and are having long delays in accessing even just responses around the claims that they've submitted. And I'm wondering if you could speak to what the department has done to implement a plan to have a permanent, stable workforce within to be able to start resolving some of this caseload.
Thanks very much for the question, and it's an essential question. I think that we've seen great progress on the backlog, and we won't stop until we get to the service standard. And to be clear, the service standard is 16 weeks from application to payment. in 80% of the cases. That's a standard that has been in place for several years and one that we've sought to maintain. We've not maintained it over these past few years, and our target, our objective is to get to that service standard. In terms of ensuring that individuals can come forward, we want to make sure that they feel confident that when they come forward, they will get the information that they need, that they will get the response that is required, and that they have an opportunity to be in contact with the department to be able to get a sense of where their application is. We've got greater than 190,000 veterans who receive supports and services from Veterans Affairs Canada. And it's important that we treat each of them in terms of their individual circumstances. So our desire is to make sure that they have a place to come, that they know that they will get a response, and that we're providing that response consistently to them.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot to set my timer at the beginning of this one. Yes, thank you. Okay, so less about the workload, more about the stable workforce within. What's being done currently around that? Thank you.
So we, as indicated before, have been able to succeed at getting a budgetary allocation for temporary resources. We have those temporary resources in place until the end of this coming fiscal year. We're working hard within government to ensure that those resources are there and are there permanently, that we're finding a way to get to permanence. That's an active discussion and an active attention. We're also seeking ways to improve the process, to make the process more direct and straightforward for veterans, and to make sure that the adjudication process is more straightforward as well. So permanent fixtures there as well. Thank you, Mr.
As you know, we're going to have to vote on the credits at the end, but we still have time to allow, let's say, 3 minutes for each parliamentarian group, and after that we'll vote on that. So I would like to invite Mr. Terry Dodell for 3 minutes, please.
Very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all our witnesses for being here today. I'm sure that you're probably familiar in 2019 that this committee, which I wasn't on at that particular time, but did do a study that focused on homelessness and the issue there, and a lot of it at that time was attributed to a range of issues, could be, addictions, mental health, whatever it could be, was part of that. But I think now, after the pandemic, home prices in my area are like $700,000 for a home to buy. I'm just curious what came out of that study, because at that time there's 3,000 to 5,000 was the number. They're saying now 6,000 is probably more likely. So I'm just curious as to what recommendations at that time that the committee put forward that the government worked on with VAC to come up with some solutions, because we're basically perhaps double the number right now.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and it's a very important and timely question, so I really appreciate you raising it. I think that the ministers indicated, and we would hold, that one homeless veteran is one too many. And our desire is to bring effective homelessness amongst veterans down to zero.
Can you spell out exactly what the plan is, please?
So there is in last budget 2022, there was a commitment to augment the budgetary allocation that was there, so that there will be greater than $100 million in place over the next 5 years to provide supports to veterans directly.
And can I ask, how are you finding these veterans? Because I talked to an organization when I was at a meeting in Toronto, and they're just individuals that are out there looking for these individuals that aren't really part of your organization. So I'm just kind of curious as to how are you doing it to actually make a difference? Because I don't really see it. I don't think people know where to go. I don't know where they look. I'm confused as part of this committee to see exactly how you go about it. So I just want to know what is the goal? How do you find homeless people?
So our area offices across the country are active in this, first of all, and they work very closely with local organizations who are also doing this in their own communities to try to identify and then help those veterans who may be homeless or house insecure. And that work has continued. the funds that are going to be put in place, the programs that are going to roll out over the next 5 years and very shortly, will ensure greater supports for those community-based organizations that are helping identify and support homeless vets right across the country.
Okay, because just in talking to individuals, it doesn't seem like that's happening at this moment in time, that they're doing it on their own. It's costing a lot of churches, just vets that are out there that realize how tough it is. So I just really extremely frustrated. I know a lot of people here said everything is great in the committee, and that's fantastic that some things are going well, but I think this is an area that, quite frankly, 2019, it doesn't seem like there's checks and balances to show that we're actually succeeding.
You're very right, and there's more to come. Stay tuned.
Thank you so much. It's really fast, 3 minutes. So now I invite Mr. Sean Kesey for 3 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to ask you about the last post fund. Back when the Conservatives were in power, it was extremely frustrating to try to get through to them the importance of the discrepancy between the cost of a funeral, which was paid for by the government for a serving member, as compared to a veteran. And finally, in about 2013, they increased the amount paid to the last post fund, almost doubled it. And this was actually after almost being shamed into doing it. Anyway, I do see in the estimates that there is a decrease in the last post fund from 2018, 2019 to 21, 22. Please tell me the decrease is not because of the allowance, that there's some other reason.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'll defer this question to my colleague, Amy Meunier, who is responsible for commemoration. Amy?
Hi, thank you for the question. No, it wouldn't be connected to that. It would be in relation to the number of veterans passing, as well as the need for their services. So a sort of a lower uptick. We're working with the last post fund in terms of grave markers and other areas in which we can continue to work with them.
I cede my time to Mr. Sampson.
No. It's 3 minutes round, so you have 1 minute and a half.
Yeah, I'll take that last minute and a half.
Please go ahead,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Sanson.
Chair. I'd like to, I see in the estimates an increase of 5.8% in the education and training program. Can you speak to that? Because we had some weaknesses here not too long ago that said that the program was expanding and it more uptake. So I'd like you maybe to share some information on that. Thank you.
Go ahead. Thanks very much. Very quickly, we have seen an increase in the number of veterans coming to use the education and training benefit. It allows them an opportunity to either follow a short course up to a little over $5,000 or use an entire $80,000 allotment for a more formal education program. It's an excellent tool for them to use for transition. It's also a tool that many members use after they've transitioned and maybe even after a second career to find something else that they want to do that is of use for them and their well-being. It can be employment focused. It can be more for their development, professional development, and personal development. And we have seen an increase in veterans coming forward to using it, as it is a valuable program across the broad spectrum of veterans who've left the Canadian Armed Forces.
I know my time has run out, but I'm going to have to re-educate myself because it was a simple number, 40,000 for 6 years, 80,000. Now it's like 44, 45, and 86. You. So I see an increase. So I'll have to go back to the
Sanson.
Drawing board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sanson. Monsieur Desilets.
Mr. Desilets, you have 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your generosity. Mr. Harris. In September 2020, the Parliamentary Budget Officer estimated that to hire employees on a temporary basis for, let's say, a 3-year term, that was not an effective or an efficient way to do away with these backlogs in disability claims. My question is, if we had followed the recommendations from the PBO, do you think today we would be dealing with absolutely no backlog, actually? I don't think we'll ever be at a zero backlog. The service standard is 80% within 16 weeks, which means that there will be about 20% of applications that could be there for longer than 16 minutes, even with more staff within the department. Why? Because they're complex. It's difficult. It takes time to get the information for other reasons. There will always be some level of backlog, but we've made huge strides in reducing that gap between the applications and that also we've reduced that timeline 54 weeks for francophones actually to down below 30 weeks. You know, I agree that there has been progress, and I mentioned it and I noted when that's the case. But here, on December 31st, 2022, there were some backlogs that affected 8,365 individuals. That's a lot. It is improving things, but not fast enough. Will there be permanent positions? I will use the department's budget to make sure we have the people we need. I will maximize the flexibility that I have within our budgets to make sure that we can retain individuals who are trained, who are bilingual, who are professional, to make sure that we have the best possible employees at Veterans Affairs. Okay, so you're not talking about permanent positions once again. I do have permanent positions here, and I'm always listening to make sure that the people who are in these temporary positions end up in permanent positions. Every time there is an opportunity to put a person who is a temporary employee into a permanent position, eventually I do that. Mr. Harris, do you believe in the effectiveness and relevance of permanent positions in order to retain employees and to make sure that they feel involved in the organization? Certainly, it's difficult to recruit, to train, and to retain people with experience. That's always an issue that is more positive, something that's more positive and more effective. Mr. Desilets, your time is. Thank you.
3 minutes goes to Mrs. Barron. Please go ahead.
For last. Thanks. Thank you very much. My question's to Mr. Ledwell. Mr. Ledwell, currently there's no policy supporting service dogs for veterans, and on February 13th, this committee received a letter from the Canadian Foundation for Animal Assisted Services announcing that they've completed the work on national standards for animal assisted services. Could you please let us know if the department will work with them to establish specific standards for service dogs for veterans?
I've, Mr. Chair, not seen the letter and would look forward to reviewing it. I think that the department is certainly interested in supporting veterans and making sure the veterans have the supports that they require. And we've done everything we can to ensure that that's the case. We have sought a standard with respect to service dogs, and I know that there's a lot of discussion in the community about that.
So I'm assuming that's a yes to working with the Canadian Foundation for Animal Assisted Services on this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My next question is for Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, I wanted to follow up on some of the numbers that you were quoting. You were talking about a 30-to-1 ratio of case managers to veterans. And we have information with those numbers speaking to the fact that there are 90 case managers currently on leave, which, as you can imagine, increases that ratio to 37-to-1. So I'm wondering if you can clarify the current caseload at Veteran Affairs Canada and what's being done to address that.
Thank you very much for the question. The current caseload average across the case managers is 30-to-1. You're quite right. There are people who go on leave for any number of reasons. When they go on leave, we serve to try and replace them and make sure that there's a case manager, whether that's somebody who's acting up in a position, someone else that we've recruited in on a temporary basis to fill them. Sometimes there are some gaps and there are some delays in between somebody leaving for one reason or another, a new job, a new opportunity, and getting somebody else in. So there is a variability in the number of, on average. The average is about 30-to-1, however, and we make sure that we try and fill any position that becomes vacant by virtue of somebody moving.
Thank you. There was also some mention around the caseload not being maintained over the last couple of years. And some of the struggles, which I'm, of course, and many of us around this table are hearing about firsthand within our offices. And I'm wondering what you would suggest for us to share with veterans who are experiencing a lack of response, backlogged cases, and are just waiting for an answer as to when they will and if they will be receiving the supports that they need and deserve after serving.
We have a couple of programs that are run differently. If a veteran needs a case manager, they will get a case manager. There are some wait times that exist within disability benefits applications. We've been speaking about that and our need to improve some of our turnaround times on that front. With respect to people participating in a rehabilitation program, the actual approval rate is quite quick in terms of getting people in the door and established into rehabilitation and focused with a case manager. There's not a backlog in terms of people waiting for case managers. There is backlogs in some other programs, such as our disability benefits, but no backlog for somebody who needs a case manager.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. So, on behalf of all members of the committee and myself, I'd like to thank all of you. And from the Department of Veterans Affairs, we have with us Mr. Paul Ledwell, Deputy Minister, Ken McKillop, Associate Deputy Minister by video conference, Mrs. Amy Meunier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Commemoration and Public Affairs Branch by video conference, Mr. Stephen Harris, Assistant Deputy Minister, Service Delivery Branch, Mr. Pierre Tessier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic Policy, Planning and Performance Branch by video conference, and Jonathan Adams, Acting Director General and Acting Chief Financial Officers on Finance. So you can stay there, but we only have to vote on the credits. So, conformément au
Pursuant to 81 for standing order, we will now move to the main estimates for the fiscal year ending in 2024. The first option is to vote all at once for all appropriations, or we will have to go through this 3 times, these various voted appropriations. So do I have unanimous consent to just do this at one time, one single appropriation? Thank you.
D'accord, dans son ensemble.
All right. So 1 and 5 under Veterans Affairs and 1 under the tribunal. Are they adopted on division? Now, as to reporting this to the House, may I report these voted appropriations to the House? No objections, so that is also passed and carries. I'd like to remind members that next Thursday, we will be in camera to provide instructions to our analysts for the study on the National Strategy for Veterans Employment post-service, and we will also be beginning our study on the impact of the new service contract in anticipation of our study on women veterans. Is it the pleasure of committee members to adjourn? Yes, I'd like to thank our interpreters, our witnesses, and our technical staff. Adjourned.
Thank you.